Hiya, and welcome back to Sileo Tales of a New Dawn. The game that teaches us that the best way to deal with an awkward situation is to just laugh it off. Because you're getting less and less cursed. I can't think of much else to say about this in the beginning, so let's just hop right in. Ty departed from our group, making his way out the front door of the venue at first. Oh, hello. At first, it made no sense why he had to make this call in private, but then it suddenly dawned on me. Whoever he was calling had to do something with either the local food safety department or more specifically, local government, and it just so happens that he was certain Raven with those exact credentials. Apollo had gone out on a limb for Ty and me, taking great personal risks ensuring that we would successfully reunite. I knew he had done more for Ty than for me, but all the same, I felt compelled to thank him now that all was said and done. Both Lucas and I knew about Apollo, but Jay did not, which was why Ty had left the room to make that phone call, and I couldn't see any harm in following him out of the room. It would be a good opportunity to speak with him. Actually, I just remembered a detail Ty might have forgotten. I'll be back in a moment. See you soon, Aiden. Sure. Arriving outside, I spotted Ty in the rapidly fading evening light as he stood beside a tree, his phone to his ear as he faced the river ahead. This venue was immediately across the street from the waterfront, and at this time of the evening, it was a sight to behold. I approached my boyfriend, his silence confirming I would not be interrupting any conversation before I spoke up in order to capture his attention. Hey, get hold of him yet? Oh! My goodness, I'd not expected you to follow. You gave me quite the fright. Sorry about that. It's okay, right? That I came out here with you? Of course it is, my dear. You're calling Apollo, right? I was hoping I could speak with him for a moment. I want to express my gratitude for what he did for me. For us. We owe him a lot. That we do, my love. That we do. Ty lowered the phone from his ear, disconnecting the current call and redialing before turning his handset to his former position. Alas, it would seem I am unable to reach him at present. Nothing more than dead air. I do hope this is not a sign that my phone is faulty yet again. Twice already this year I have had it repaired. If it happens again, I'm half inclined to simply throw it in the garbage and buy a new one instead. Would you like to try mine instead? I have plenty of talk time. Thank you for the offer, my dear, but the ice cream stand will not open again until morning. The night is still young, and there will be ample opportunities for us to try again later on. But look at me getting ahead of myself and making assumptions. I have yet to even ask if that is what you would like. I was speaking to Diego earlier, and he said that if I came home tonight, I was a total loser. He also said something about butt babies. Well, that certainly sounds like Diego. I suppose that means we will have to prove him wrong, will we not, my love? If you'll have me. My dear, it would be my privilege. I must ask, however hesitantly, butt babies, you said? I think he's suggesting we should bang. Oh dear, was that not a given? I do seem to recall promising finishing what I started at the hot springs, and I suspect neither of us would be content if our night concluded there, am I right? Sounds to me like you've got something in mind. Well, yes, I have a few ideas, but I do not wish to ruin the surprise. Besides, the others are waiting for our return. Should we be getting back? Ha! You're lucky you have such a valid excuse. Let's go. My apologies for the wait, gentlemen. How'd it go? No answer, I'm afraid. I suppose it is getting late. With that in mind, how about we make a start on our practice? Unless either of you had anything you wish to discuss? Actually, there is something I would like to talk with you all about. Indeed, today was the final day, was it not? It was, yes. Just so you know, no matter what your choice, we will respect that decision. Even if that means you are leaving the band. Whoa, excuse me, but what? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Poor Aiden doesn't even know what's going on yet. To properly comprehend everything that led to this point, it's important you understand me. I might look simple enough on the surface, but that's far from reality. In truth, it's kind of remarkable I'm a functioning person at all. You're about to find out why. I'm going to try and keep this brief, but if I leave anything important out, just ask, okay? Don't be afraid to interrupt. Lucas, Ty, and I all nodded silently in unison, standing at attention with all eyes on Jay as he finally commenced his story. Just going to hide the screen. So this morning I had a long conversation with a guy called Maxwell. He's Ortegan, just like me. Different subspecies, different parts of the country. But the same, no less. And he was kind of a patriot. He parroted the sort of awful propaganda they do at home, and it opened up some old wounds. Aiden overheard some of that conversation, but I'll give you guys a summary. Basically, growing up on Ortega is hard. Because of the whole, going extinct thing, there's a lot of pressure on kids to become breeders. Breeders are, revered in our society. They're treated like saviors among our people and wind up living privileged lives. The more kids you have, the better off you'll be. And having so much as one is enough to ensure your needs will be met for life. My maternal grandmother pretty much dedicated her life to that cause. Almost immediately after giving birth, she'd get herself pregnant again, and she did this over and over until her body simply couldn't take it anymore. She became one of the most respected breeders in Ortega. That meant my mom had dozens upon dozens of siblings, all of whom carried the weight of their mother's legacy on their shoulders. Mom was one of only 2 fertile children, but 2 fertile children is practically considered a miracle, and Mom, she wanted nothing more than to follow in her mother's footsteps. Because of the emphasis put on breeders, there's a huge stigma that just sort of swallows everyone else. Infertility is rampant for one, but that's not so bad. If you can't breed for reasons outside of your control, you're mostly ignored, discarded. That's practically a luxury compared to the alternative. But if you won't breed, that's another thing entirely. That's what it means to be gay in Ortega. It's akin to refusing conscription during wartime. You're a disgrace who is merely putting your own wants ahead of the needs of your entire species. Even if you're infertile and couldn't reproduce anyway, that doesn't matter. A man who prefers the company of other men, fertile or otherwise, is little more than a selfish and cowardly traitor in the eyes of Ortegan society. All because of how you were born. Because of something you had no control over, no say in. Kind of fucked up, huh? You're treated as if you want your people to die, like you're a worthless waste of potential. Like you were born wrong. And when you're a young teen growing up in Ortegan society and coming to terms with your own sexuality, the fear, the denial, the misery, it's more than enough to kill, and it does. Constantly. Ortega as a nation has the highest rate of suicide in the world. But just wait until you hear just how high it is. Double? Nope. Triple? Nope. No way. Tried 5 times the world average. 5 times, and 80% of those suicides occur between the ages of 13 and 18. Take a wild guess why so many young men are taking their own lives before they ever reach adulthood. Go on, guess. Fuck, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snap. It's just, I had 4 friends I saw every single day as a kid. We all started high school together, but in the end, I graduated alone. I was the only one who made it through, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. My parents split up when I was 5 years old. Dad was fertile, obviously. He was also gay. He knew, but tried to bury it away, and live the way society expected him to, the life of a breeder. A hero of Ortegan society, and it made him absolutely miserable. After I was born, there was constant pressure for him to follow up with another. Not just from my mom either, from everyone. Worse still, because of Mom's heritage, we were almost considered royalty, which only increased the pressure even more. He just couldn't force himself to go through with it again. He just couldn't do it. Conceiving me had already been traumatic for him. It left him with some deep psychological scars. Before he knew it, 5 years had come and gone, and the pressure had progressively twisted into ire. Eventually, all he could do was come clean. Mom left. That was the day my parents split. For a while, they shared parental duties. But she was so busy with the whole saving the species thing, so busy she eventually just stopped coming to visit. Her mission was more important than I could ever be. I've got a lot of half-brothers back in Ortega. She does have a sad backstory. I've got a lot of half-brothers back in Ortega, but last I heard, they're dying quicker than they can be replaced. How despicable is that? It's such a normal thing these days that nobody even thinks twice about it. If you want to make an omelet, you've got to break a few eggs. Mom's final farewell came in the form of a check, a huge one. I was 7 at the time, and it was essentially 11 years of alimony paid in advance. And just like that, she was off the hook. Dad used that money to take me overseas on this huge vacation. We went everywhere. We saw everything. Outside the Ortegan border, he witnessed a world where sexuality was not only normalized, but completely devoid of any stigma whatsoever. He got a taste of the world that accepted him for who he was, a world that did not judge him or pressure him to be anything other than himself. The earliest memories I have of Dad, he looked so miserable, but in every memory I have of that vacation, he's always wearing this big goofy smile. Always. We spent about a year abroad all top, and we saw so many incredible places along the way, and one of our stops, it was right here, Woodcrest. Yeah, I just realized. It's grown a lot in 14 years. Honestly, the first time I was here, Woodcrest didn't leave much of an impression. I can't say I remember much about that visit, except for one specific thing. Dad bought me a souvenir in every single place we stopped. I wound up with all kinds of knickknacks. Clothes, accessories, collectibles, ornaments. After all, we were dragging all kinds of junk along with us in our suitcases, so we opted for smaller and smaller gifts. And during our stay in Woodcrest, my dad bought me the Black Claw's debut album. I'm ashamed to admit that my 7-year-old self lacked the refined palate required to appreciate such music. Upon my return to Ortega, I was relegated to a closet where it remained for many long years, caked in dust and spiderwebs just waiting for the day I would rediscover it. Following our return, Dad was hellbent on finding us a permanent home somewhere in the outside world. Anywhere assured us both a better life than the world we would have in Ortega. He applied for visa after visa, spending hours at his computer filling out applications. Every time a letter would arrive, we would eagerly open it together, excited to find out if that letter would contain the golden ticket inviting us to a brighter future abroad. But letter after letter returned with an unfavorable judgment, day after day, week after week, month after month. The excitement faded, and we grew exhausted with the relentless string of rejections, and as months turned into years, Dad, he simply lost hope. And the worst part is that he was declined on the grounds of being a medical burden on more than a few occasions, and all he had was fucking diabetes. The light in his eyes simply vanished. He was trapped in his own personal hell. I didn't fully understand how he felt at the time, but years later I would grapple with the revelation that our sexuality was something we held in common. It was around that time it became my own personal hell too. It was around then I started high school. My group of friends didn't even make it through the first semester before our 5 became 4. I confided in Dad, and I'll never forget the words he said. Never let those bastards tell you who to be, or what is right or what is wrong. That is for you to decide for yourself, and so long as you are following your heart and doing what makes you happy, who cares what they think? He was in my corner from day 1, and as 4 became 3, I stumbled upon an old music CD buried deep within my closet. It's almost poetic that something found deep within my closet would be the very thing that helped me come to terms with my own sexuality. 6 years had passed, and at this time I was hooked from the very first listen. There were songs about rebellion, songs about pride, songs about freedom, songs that celebrated sexuality. It was like Dad had said, never let those bastards tell you who to be. Those were the most challenging days of my life. My friends were all as miserable, if not even more so than I was. That is, those that remained. 3 would soon become 2, but I held on tight. Never give up, never surrender, just like that rich, powerful baritone would howl on my favorite album. It was a perfect storm. I was fragile and vulnerable, desperate to find acceptance, to be proud of my sexuality, and like any teenage boy, I was equally desperate to express my sexuality. And of all the things that could have captured my attention, it was one particular promo shot of Glenn on the back of the album booklet. He was alone, shirtless, and lit in such a way the light bounced off his muscular body, casting shadows across his face that made him look menacing, made him look dangerous. What began as a crush spiraled into a worrying obsession when the last of my friends followed the example set by the others. I was all alone, and in my grief, I latched onto something, and my fragile mind began to construct this perception of who I thought Glenn truly was. His lyrics painted a picture of this proud, courageous, and confident man who lived by his own creed, openly celebrated his sexuality, and explored that sexuality without shame, fear, or hesitation. Everything he stood for was in the direct opposition to Ortegan society. He inspired a sort of rebellion within me. I'm worried about how it might turn out, so yeah. He became an icon, a messiah, a symbol of everything I so desperately wanted for myself. It was then that I began modeling myself after him, so I picked up the bass guitar in the first place, simply because it was the same instrument Glenn played. And as I spiraled deeper still, I fell in love. It's pathetic, I know, but I fell madly in love with this man. I became entirely convinced he was my soulmate. I would see him when I closed my eyes. I would meet with him in my wildest dreams. And then there were the fantasies. Remember Dad's words. When you turn 18, promise me you'll find a way out of this horrible place. Promise me you'll find a better life and a brighter future somewhere where you're free to be yourself. Don't get trapped here like I have. Promise me you'll go out into the world and find your happiness. Honestly, I needed no convincing, and Glenn, I knew Woodcrest was where I would find him. There was never any other destination. I was always going to be Woodcrest, and so on my 18th birthday, I applied for a working-class visa. 3 weeks passed before a single letter arrived in the mail. Dad was confused, not understanding why I applied for a single destination rather than adopting a scattergun approach from years prior. But for the first time in roughly a decade, we opened that letter together just like we used to, and for the first time ever, the letter contained good tidings. Dad was so proud of me. He was also so sad that I would be leaving. I was all he'd had for the past 13 years, and with my departure, he would be all on his own. But he forced the brightest smile I'd seen since the vacations we'd taken all those years ago. He was so happy for me, and wanted nothing more than to bolster my confidence. The last thing he wanted was to instill any doubt. Though try as he may, he could not conceal the tears that poured endlessly from his tired eyes. My final day in Ortega, I was taking care of the last of my belongings, and the Black Claw CD was among those belongings. Over the years, I had gotten the disc resurfaced to counteract the wear and tear generated by constant use. Alas, a disc can only be resurfaced so many times, and what remained was no longer readable by any CD player. The case was cracked and broken, the teeth that held the disc all but broken and missing, and the booklet, oh god, that booklet. The less said about its condition, the better. Everything else went in the trash, but such a send-off felt far too unceremonious for something that had been and still was such an important piece of my life. Almost like a ritual of sorts, I set it alight as the smell of melting plastic flooded my nostrils. Eventually, all that remained was ashes. I wasn't sad. I could buy myself a brand new copy once I arrived in my new home. I wouldn't even need a new copy. After all, I'd have the real thing all to myself, right? Though it wasn't just old, broken memories that had been erased by that flame. So too did the flames engulf the person I had been, erasing my personality and everything else that I had been for the past 18 years. I had been waiting for a long time to finally do that. The only thing that stood in my way was Ortega, but on that day, I would leave Ortega behind. In Woodcrest, I would become the person I'd spent years longing to be. A proud, courageous, and confident man who lived by his own creed, openly celebrated his sexuality and explored that sexuality without shame, fear, or hesitation. I would literally erase my own identity in order to become Glenn. There was only one thing from my past life that I did not discard. Dad. That day was the last time I saw him. I've been saving up money to bring him out here on vacation, but life keeps getting in the way, as it often does. But I know how lonely he's been. He deserves a nice holiday. I took one 4-hour flight and had a 6-hour layover, and then an 11-hour flight which finally landed in Sidonia. It was then several more hours by train before I'd finally arrived in my new home. Jet-lagged beyond belief, but positively ecstatic to have finally arrived in my new home. I knew Glenn even better than I had ever known myself, so adopting that persona was a simple affair, and the response to the new me was instantly electric, but of course it was. After all, I was only imitating a far greater man than I could ever hope to become, right? I'd been in Woodcrest for about a week when I visited the local music store, hoping to replace my copy of the debut album. I struck up conversations with the clerk who provided a series of world-shattering revelations. I would firstly learn of the existence of 2 more recently released albums. But then I learned that the Black Claws had split up only a short time prior to my arrival. That alone hurt a great deal, but then the clerk would begin to fill me in on the drama which eventually led up to the separation. He told me that the mohawk-wielding tiger punk that appeared in the booklet for the first album had matured into a classy and respectable man, while Glenn, a notoriously narcissistic and egotistical man, remained almost entirely unchanged. I learned about how this shift in dynamic would cause a rift to emerge between Glenn and the other 2 members of the band, with the resulting impact having a significant effect on the 3rd album. That eventually resulted in the dissolution of the band, something that seemed long overdue by that point. All this was very hard to swallow, but the more that the clerk spoke of Glenn, the more he recounted various stories and rumors, the more he painted that vivid picture of a largely despicable man, the more the world around me shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. I was in denial and disbelief. I took the new records home and dived right into search for answers. Cracks were already showing on the sophomore effort. But the 3rd album was damning. The material performed by each vocalist sounded nothing alike, almost as though they were completely different bands. Not only that, but the promotional material showed an unchanged Glenn next to a well-dressed and dapper-looking Ty. And having learned what I had about Glenn, This thrust several of his songs into a new light, and I didn't like what I had discovered. It was a very hard thing for me to process. I hadn't for a moment considered that the Glenn that existed within my dreams, my fantasies, and my wishful imagination was nothing more than a fabrication that had almost nothing in common with the real man. It was deeply sobering, to say the least. I had constructed my entire personality based on this person. I genuinely loved that man and wanted nothing more than to make him my own, and in my still fragile mental state, learning that practically my entire life had been a lie was something far beyond what I was capable of processing. My instincts took over to shield me from harm. My identity, my grief, and the existential doubts were all buried deep down within me, and I simply carried on. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't rightly know who I even was, but people seemed to like that person, so that is who I continued to be. Woodcrest had been treating me well so far, my unresolved identity crisis notwithstanding. Woodcrest was otherwise delivering on every one of my high expectations, and as I continued to rehearse with such positive reception, habits would begin to form. I developed myself into a proud, courageous, and confident man who lived by his own creed, openly celebrated his sexuality, and explored that sexuality without shame, fear, or hesitation. And in return, I received so much encouragement, acceptance, and love from my newfound peers. For the first time, maybe ever, I was genuinely happy. Existing in such positive circumstances healed my fractured mind and built me into the stable, healthy individual I have since become. And I lived happily ever after. At least that's what I would have said if you'd asked me a few days ago. Sorry, I planned to keep things brief, it's just, that's the first time I've really told anybody that stuff, ever. And it's nice to get it off my chest. These last 3 years, it's been kind of buried somewhere beneath the surface. I never addressed it, but it was otherwise benign. Then last Saturday night happened, alongside everything that led up to that stupid argument with that idiot in the bar this afternoon. Suffice it to say, it's all been dug up and laid bare whether I like it or not. And this time, I can't just bury it again. This time I need to deal with this thing head on. First and foremost, my dear, bearing your soul like that must have required a great deal of courage. I'm proud of you for doing so, and I thank you for being so forthcoming with us. I concede much of what you have shared has caught me by complete surprise. There are some aspects of your past that I simply do not know how to respond to. That being said, your actions on Saturday didn't make a lot of sense until now. Now it makes perfect sense for better or for worse. For worse, definitely. Still a completely boneheaded move. Even if why you did it makes more sense now. Regretfully, I'm inclined to agree with Lucas on that front. Yeah, I know, it was stupid. I'm not claiming otherwise, nor am I trying to justify it, so you don't need to scold me about it again. Apologies, that was not our intention. It's fine, and it's like I said, I've thought about it a lot, and I know where to go from here. I haven't told Aiden what had happened yet, and now that we've gotten all the drama out of the way, now seems like the perfect opportunity. Of course, my dear, once again, take as long as you need. I'm listening, Jake. Go ahead whenever you're ready. I just hope I won't gag this time. Is it that kind of story? Only if you find Glenn repulsive. After more than a decade of tolerating his shit, I do. Otherwise, who knows? You might even enjoy it. Ooh, this is sounding rather zesty. Alright, Jay, hit me with that good stuff. Coming right up. So we concluded an unusually mopey practice earlier than usual that evening, on account of mutual lovebirds breaking up the day before. So I had some unexpected free time to kill. And Eric had invited me to the strip club. I had nothing better to do, so I agreed. Damn it, Eric. Hey, stud, I just knew you couldn't resist my company. It was a choice between watching TV and watching Hot Guys. Those sitcoms never stood a chance. Not a hard decision. This one that'll make you hard. Am I right or what? I sure hope so. Now then, I'm hungry for some tacos. You want some tacos? I want curly fries. Again? If you keep eating those, you're going to wind up all soft and pudgy. It's all empty carbs. At least choose something with meat. Nah, only curly fries will sate this kind of hunger. Though maybe you'd like some meat instead, eh? How about it? It will be my treat. So Jay's Jay because Glenn inspired Jay to act like Glenn, his image, which made Jay's identity crisis lead to Glenn Jay. But that's the Jay we know now, even though it revolves around Glenn. This is turning more and more into Kingdom Hearts lore. And I don't like it. Well, how could I refuse? That sounds like a great way to wrap up the night in style, but let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. One bucket of curly fries coming right up. Shit, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. A few uneventful hours would come and go in what seemed like a heartbeat. As that night's distinctive lack of handsome patrons became abundantly clear, all the same, Eric and I enjoying each other's company, our discussions unrestrained by boundaries of any sort. He was striking out like you wouldn't believe. I have no idea how he landed a guy like Ty with those moves. I never knew Aiden was that kind of guy. Maybe he ought to ask his old buddy Eric for a tip, eh? We both know the only tip you'd give him is yours. Yeah, and? Don't tell me you wouldn't. Well, I never said that. I mean, have you seen that dump truck ass of his? Okay. So, like... You said less drama. I feel like this is the less drama we need. Just like Eric and Jay talking about Aiden's dump truck ass. Well, duh, it's me you're talking to. I'd play this Well, duh, it's me you're talking to. I'd play those chunky cheeks like bongos. Oh god, that's still up. I completely forgot to take that down, but no. Oh, fuck. I'm sorry, but like Donkey Kong's all that came to mind. Well, with moves like his, there's no way he's getting laid tonight. Perhaps if you caught him at the right time, his blue balls might just compel him to say yes. And here I thought I was the bad influence. You know, I'd love some time up close and personal with those glorious glutes. Hey, what are the chances he'd agree to a threesome? Think he'd be into it? Sorry ma'am, count me out. You're sending some real mixed messages here, stud. Don't get me wrong, Aiden is a mighty fine piece of ass. It's just that I'm in a band with his ex-boyfriend, and they only broke up yesterday. As tempting as it is, that just feels like I would cross the line, you know? At the very least, I'd wait a couple of weeks. Come on, a prime cut like that will not wait around. If you hesitate even for a moment, you'll miss your shot. There's no time for principles, you've got to be ruthless in success to succeed in this kind of market. Geez, what are you, some kind of asshole economist? Heh, I'm a goddamn professional. I know better than anyone what you've got to be willing to do whatever it takes. And yet you still refuse to bottom. So, I'm a top. I'm just not interested in doing that. I'm just not interested in doing that sort of stuff. I know, it's a real shame though. Those firm cheeks of yours look as though they'd give Aiden a run for their money. What? Shut up, you're full of shit. You're so little padding I find it uncomfortable sitting on hard surfaces. A big, round butt is nice, sure. But I'll have you know I enjoy tight, firm butts like yours just as much. Well, you can forget about it. You know I'm not into that stuff. It's such a crying shame, but if you ever change your mind, I promise I'll make it worth your while. Yeah, don't get your hopes up. I can't believe you just openly admitted that you were both perving on me. You know I'm right here, dude. I do, and I stand by those opinions. Right, thanks, I guess. Though if I'm honest, I still can't wrap my head around the whole playing my chunky cheeks like bongos statement. I'm certain that if you ask, Eric would be happy to give you hands-on demonstration. If the Black Claws need someone on the bongos that badly, you're gonna have to find someone else to be your musical instrument. Poor Eric, his hopes and dreams, so ruthlessly crushed. So I keep telling you, I'm a top. You know, you see when you find something you're good at, you've got to double down. And you know me, I fuck like a beast. Ha, you're certainly not lacking in ego, that's for sure. I'm not cruel enough to rob you of credit where credit is due, though. I knew you thought so. But don't think buttering me up is gonna make me change my mind. Just think, if you got some experience in private, you could ditch that worthless cruising app and earn some money instead. Too bad, it ain't happening, and that's that. You don't know what you're missing, Mr. Plow. Peh. So hey, I was thinking, tonight's been a total bust, right? So, why not blow this popsicle stand and head back to my place? We can bury ourselves in blankets, watch some shitty B movies. And while we're under there, what, so soon? Happy hour hasn't even started yet. Face it, tonight is a lost cause, even I know that. It's not like some smoking hot dude is gonna suddenly waltz through those doors. Instead, we could be... What's wrong? A smoking hot dude just suddenly waltzed through those doors, and why does he look so familiar? Oh shit, isn't that the dude whose job you stole? Hang on, let me, pull up the... Because I don't know what Glenn's going to look like. What? There, standing at the end of the bar. That's the guy, right? Oh, fuck. My blood had run as cold as ice as I slowly turned my head. Fearful Eric had not been mistaken, and as my eyes landed on my target, my fears were instantly confirmed. More than a decade and a half had passed, yet it seemed the years had been kind to Glenn. He hadn't changed one iota. He was a face I'd stared at longingly for so many years, a face I'd seen in my dreams and my fantasies. He wore the face of the man I once loved, but I knew that man had never even existed to begin with, and the man standing on the opposite end of the room was a man I had instead come to despise. Years had passed since that fateful day I learned the truth about the kind of man Glenn truly was. Instead of coming to terms with it, I buried it deep. Out of sight, out of mind, convincing myself that it was all in the past, where it no longer posed any threat. A benign memory and nothing more. Okay, he's actually wearing clothes, so we're safe. But as I stared from my distant seat, I felt butterflies take flight from within my belly, my mind racing to make sense of it all, and it took every last shred of willpower in my possession to resist his allure and the urge to do something incredibly foolish. That is how I knew I'd been horribly mistaken. Buried no more, the feelings I thought long dead reawakened within me. My attraction every bit as potent as it had been all those years ago. Jay, you okay there, man? You look like you've seen a ghost. I might as well have to tell you the truth. So it is him! I knew it. Eric did not attempt hiding the fact he was sizing Glenn up, his eyes scanning up and down, taking in the view before turning his gaze back to me to deliver his verdict. Ooh, he's dripping with that bad boy energy. A scary-looking guy like that probably thinks he's so tough. It's okay, though. I know exactly how to tame those bad boy types. Yeah, I know. With your dick, right? I love watching them beg. Hate to ruin your fantasy, but I've heard enough of his songs to know he's always the guy on top. Or so he says, but if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's always those kinds of guys who secretly crave it the most. Like you, then? No, I already told you that I'm A-style. Well, it ain't his either. He just doesn't know what he's missing. Nobody's a top for long when Eric's in the house. You're frustratingly inconsistent, you know that? What are you talking about? What if you fucked yourself? Hey, rude. No, I don't... Ugh, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, if you can really convert any pitcher into a willing catcher, what would happen if, say, you cloned yourself? What? Well? They haven't even figured out how to clone people yet. That's not important. Seems pretty damn important to me. How else am I going to go fuck myself? It's a hypothetical question. Stop trying to confuse me. I already told you I ain't that sort of guy. That's not... I'm serious. If you're so hell-bent, seduce tall, dark, and gruesome over there instead of hassling me about it. Frustrated and defeated, I turned my focus back toward Glenn as Eric's suggestion looped over and over again in the forefront of my mind. I'd spent so many years dreaming of such an encounter, and despite everything, I couldn't ignore the fact that he looked the part. He was every bit as sexy in person as I could have imagined. I realized I had been presented with what might have been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that I could fulfill all of my teenage sexual fantasies. It was possible, and now that I knew that, I couldn't help but become fixated. But even as these thoughts swam in circles within my mind, a voice fought desperately for my attention. That voice reminded me of who Glenn really was. And what if Glenn knew who I was? What if my actions carried potential ramifications for the Black Claws? Jay, you good? You've got this real weird look on your face. I've had a massive crush on Glenn since I was 13 years old. He was the subject of so many of my fantasies, erotic fantasies. Hold the phone, are you serious? Didn't you grow up in Dragonland or whatever it's called? Those guys were never that big. How did you even know who Glenn was? That's not important. Why do you always say things are not important when they obviously are? Look, just forget about that. Point is, Glenn didn't live up to my expectations. In fact, he's kind of a prick. These days, I hate his guts. Thinking about him, it makes my blood boil. That's a super roundabout way of saying you ain't gonna fuck him, you know? I never said that. What the? Then what the hell are you saying? You're going to? I sighed to myself. I knew I was making a huge mistake. Alas, it was one of those situations where logic simply wasn't enough. My attraction towards Glenn was one small piece of a massive part of my past. A past and attraction I thought I had disposed of long ago. I couldn't have been more wrong. That's the plan. But you literally just got done saying you hated him. Yup. And you're still gonna do it? Have you lost your damn mind? Probably. Quit joking around. This is serious. What if he knows you're the guy who took his job? He'd probably hate you too. Maybe it'll be less uncomfortable that way. Who knows? Maybe it'll even be fun. Either way, I'm taking my shot. Decisively, I stood from my seat, an action which provoked a sense of panic from my companion. Wait, what if he hurts you? This is really dangerous. I knew that. I knew that all too well. Problem is, I also knew that wasn't enough to stop me. For whatever reason, I felt as though I had to do this, no matter what the cost. Sorry, Eric, I have to do this. Jay! I turned away, facing the jet black wolf that stood on the opposite side of the room, and began making my approach, leaving Eric behind before he could protest in vain any further. Please don't go. With each step I took, the distance between us dwindled until at long last I arrived, standing mere feet away from his position, leaning against the bar where he surveyed the venue while taking occasional sips from his drink. He looked up and our eyes connected, my arrival having not gone unnoticed. He remained silent, his eyes like dark coals glaring back as though he could see right into my very soul, and ascertain my true intentions. As incredibly handsome as he was, I nonetheless felt a sense of fear. Got something to say, or are you just going to stare? Glenn looked me up and down, his irritated expression fixed as though carved in stone. He waited in silence for my response as I scrambled for what to say. I hadn't planned my approach, and my nervousness threatened to sabotage my efforts before I'd even begun. Have you ever met an Ortegan before? With no better ideas, I fell back on my repertoire of pickup lines. Lines which I typically delivered with far greater confidence and precision. Nope. Well, there are 4 types, and they call mine Your point? Oh, well, there's only a few hundred of my kind left. I'm the only one here in Woodcrest that I know of. So? I knew this had already gone disastrously awry. There was no way such a weak lead-up would help my flirt to land. All I could do now was deliver that finishing blow, hoping for the best. We're known for amazing tongues. Perhaps we could go somewhere a little more private, and I can show you what makes him so special. Wow. Glenn returned a gaze that somehow felt accusing. I remained as calm as possible on the outside, but within I began to panic. I felt as though he knew exactly who I was. Of course he would. Why wouldn't he be keeping tabs? Maybe he didn't know what I looked like, though being the only southern winter dragon in Woodcrest made me unmistakable. I hoped he didn't know. I prayed he didn't know. Though I was taller than he was, he appeared stronger, and he was not the kind to hesitate in using force where required. Fuck it. Just gonna hide Thin Diego. When I walk out that door, count to 10, then follow. Until I stop, don't speak. Don't even look my way. Eyes to the ground. We clear? Yeah, we're clear. Glenn promptly ceased his lean, looking disapprovingly at me for several seconds before severing eye contact and making his way towards the rear exit of the nightclub. I looked downward, focusing on my shoelaces as my heart pounded relentlessly within my chest. I couldn't believe it. My dire attempt at courting Glenn had somehow borne fruit. I simply couldn't comprehend how, but I wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth. Was it truly about to make those teenage fantasies of mine a reality? Was it a dream come true? Or was it more like a nightmare? There was still time to back out, time to run away. I felt like such a fool. God knows I was one. But for reasons beyond my comprehension, I just had to see this through. I heard the sound of someone using the nightclub's rear entrance, and I began counting down in my head. 10, 9, 8. I have to do this. I just have to. 4, 3, 2. Oh God, why the hell am I doing this? 0. I forced my jelly-like legs forward and began heading towards the same doors Glenn had disappeared through only moments before. I didn't know if Eric was watching, but I couldn't bring myself to look back. He knew as well as I did that I was making a huge mistake. As the large metal door clanged shut behind me, I found myself standing in a dimly lit alleyway that ran between the stores on either side of the block. Despite Glenn's concerns, the alleyway appeared entirely vacant, populated only by several parked cars and a truck. That is, of course, except for Glenn himself. I almost missed the sight of a shaggy black tail disappearing around the corner of a large brick building. A stone's throw deeper into the alley's seedy depths. I calmly gave chase, keeping my eyes on the pavement in compliance with his instructions. Turning the same corner, I found myself fortunate once more as that very same tail slipped between two parked cars which sat on the opening of a narrow and poorly lit pathway leading between two buildings. Except for a single light illuminated by a large dumpster, the entire path was shrouded in darkness. I knew there was every possibility I was walking into a trap. It was all I could think about, but even that wouldn't stop me. I was acting like a fool, but it was foolishness I was fully committed to, even though I was absolutely petrified as I slipped between those same cars and started down the alley. I can't believe it. I've had the misfortune of meeting that, and he's the last person I want to follow down a dark alleyway. That's called being smart. There was nothing smart about what I did that night. Seeing him, it dug up so many old feelings. Love, admiration, lust, but also grief, anger, and resentment. My mind was a whirlwind of uncontrollable emotion. At that stage, I might as well have merely been a passenger in my own mind. I knew it was a terrible, terrible idea, but I was powerless to stop myself from doing it anyway. I understand. I've been there. I know what that feels like. Sorry for interrupting. Please continue. As I took my first steps down that claustrophobic path, I plunged into darkness. So thick I could not see my hands. An uncomfortable silence followed. The surrounding city silent with bated breath as I marched along with the beat of my heart. The dumpster ahead was flooded in light. The perfect place to ambush your victim, unsuspecting or otherwise. I stepped into the light, my terror reaching a fever pitch until I passed by that dumpster and behind it stood Glenn. I stopped dead in my tracks and made eye contact, staring deep into those soulless black holes once more. And like before, several seconds of silence passed before Glenn finally acknowledged my presence. Were you followed? I don't think so. Yes or no, were you followed? No, not a single soul in this alley besides us. And if someone came out of the nightclub, there's no way I'd have missed the clang that door makes. Glenn simply huffed in reply, almost as if he didn't believe me. Peering above the dumpster back in the direction I'd come, he waited and waited for several long moments. Finally, he seemed satisfied as he turned back towards me to bark his next order. Good enough. Let's see how amazing that tongue of yours really is. Here, in an alleyway, right next to a dumpster? No, we're just waiting for the limo that'll take us to my mansion. All that tongue of yours has done so far is complain. Get to fucking work already. Okay. Oh god. I'm just not even going to read this. It's awful. Oh god. Oh god. Ugh. Oh god. Ugh. Whoa, if I was sitting down, I'd be on the edge of my seat. Glad you're enjoying yourself, though you might not want to hear what happens next. Huh? What do you mean? Glenn's next actions are extremely forceful, to say the least. He did some things that hurt me. He even drew a small amount of blood. What? Holy fuck. Something you should know about me is that I'm more than happy to play a little fast and loose with consent in situations where I am the victim. Let me make it clear, apart from one minor detail we'll discuss in due course, I loved every minute of what is about to happen. But unless you're as depraved as I am, you'll likely find this part more than a little uncomfortable. If you prefer, I can glaze over this part. It's up to you. We're gonna skip ahead to safety. Sorry, Jay, but I don't like the sound of this one bit. I'll pass on the details, thanks. I understand. Thanks for being honest with me. I wouldn't want to cause any distress. The PG version of the story is that we did the deed right there in the alleyway. It was rough, and it hurt a lot. Thankfully, I'm a complete disgrace. The joke was on Glenn because I'm into that shit. He even bit me. Can you believe that? It was so damn hot. You know, I think I'm starting to see why Eric hangs out with you. Took you long enough. Anyway, once he'd finished with me, he showed me a video he had recorded on his phone. Apparently, I was so busy saving... He left after that, and despite the recent turn of events, I couldn't help but smile like an idiot. I'd fulfilled a childhood fantasy and had the kinkiest, roughest, most dangerous, and highest-stakes sex of my entire life. And, myself tidied up, and then I headed back to the nightclub to reconvene with my favorite rodent companion. That was awful! I closed the metal door behind me, wandering back into the nightclub. I glanced around nervously, worried that Glenn might have come back here. Thankfully, he was nowhere to be seen. I made my way over to Eric and sat down opposite him with my same smug grin. Jay. What the fuck? Hey, bud, how are the curly fries? Fuck the curly fries. What the fuck? Were you worried about me? No, he could have killed you for all I know. You were worried. No, I've never seen Eric like this, and I don't think I ever want to see Eric like this. It's like Darius from extracurricular activities. You never want to see them upset. Because you're so used to them being so goddamn horny. Fuck you, asshole. Damn it. Eric? I'd only been joking when I suggested Eric had been worried about me. He was never the type to show concern about anybody else, and yet here he had just broken down in tears. It was completely out of character for him, which is how I knew exactly how serious it was. Eric. Fuck you. Of course I was fucking worried, okay? I was so fucking scared. I never knew you had a motive than horny. Of course I fucking do. Fuck you, asshole. Whoa, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of you, it's just... I was so scared. So goddamn scared. Hey now, I'm here and I'm not hurt. I admit things got a little interesting out there, that's for sure. And man, I'm gonna be feeling it in the morning, but my point is, everything is fine. I'm fine. Good. That was so stupid of you. What if he had known who you were? Oh, he did. What? What the fuck, Jay? What fucking happened? Well, started night. Let me just hide that entire screen. Yeah, well, calm off with that. He held on to the end too, just like you did, remember? Yeah, but he, he's threatened to spread the video around unless I quit the band. Fuck. I mean, fuck, dude. Dude, it was the best. I've never felt anything like it before. It was awesome. Probably be pissed if you knew, though. I don't think I was supposed to enjoy it. But this was fucking real, Jay, not some make-believe bullshit. I know. You're lucky you didn't die, you fucking weirdo. Fuck you. I know, and you're right. The real danger of it all made it hot as hell. But it was so incredibly risky. I promise I'll never pull a stunt like that again, and I'm sorry for making you worry. What about the video? What are you going to do? Hey, Eric, don't worry about it, okay? It's okay. I'll figure it out. Will you? What the fuck are you going to do? Eric, just let me deal with it, okay? Don't worry about it. Those are the consequences of my actions tonight. Whatever happens, happens. Truthfully, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just wanted to calm Eric down. I'd never felt empathy for Eric before, if only because he never made himself vulnerable. And yet here he was, crying his eyes out with worry. That meant something, or better said, I meant something. And perhaps I didn't rightly know what just yet, but I was looking forward to finding out. Is that blood? You're bleeding! Huh? Of all the days I could have chosen not to wear a black shirt, one of my bite wounds had begun bleeding anew, and the blood was showing clearly through my clothing. Oh, this? Don't worry, it's just a little scratch, nothing major. You're lying! That doesn't even hurt, nothing to worry about. Hey, buddy. Don't call me that. Let's say we go watch some crappy movies at your place. I think I've had enough of this place for one night. It's a cold night out, too. I think we're in for a frost tomorrow morning. Gotta admit, those thick blankets of yours, they sound really good right about now. And hey, I know you're not the type, but it'd be even warmer if we snuggled up together while we watched. Eric sniffled as he reached for a napkin and used it to dry his tears. His cheeks were rosy red, clearly embarrassed that he had shown such weakness. Either that, or perhaps he was going to take me up on my suggestion, rather than decline it like he had so many times before. Let's go. Great, let's bounce, okay, buddy? Shut up. Don't call me that. Oops, sorry about that, buddy. Fuck you. That night, I had seen an all-new side of Eric that I never knew existed. We'd been friends for a good while now, and sleeping together for just as long, but it always remained entirely platonic, and honestly, I was okay with that. I wasn't looking for anything more. But after what had happened that night, not just the unbeatable sex, but I suppose it had been a near-death experience, too. Between both of those things, I was beginning to feel like I needed a change of pace. And almost as though it were fate, I would catch a rare and precious glimpse of a very different Eric that lived beneath that hard shell of ego and out-of-control libido. And you know what? I liked what I had seen. And that's what you missed, Aiden. You just had to go into excruciating detail, didn't you? Duh, I had the best time. How could I resist all the seedy details? I'm still a little tender down there, and the bite marks on my shoulder are looking a little worse for wear. Hurt like hell getting punched there this morning, too. Besides, I made a commitment to celebrating my sexuality, and if sharing all the horrible details isn't a celebration, I don't know what is. Fair point, I suppose? But naturally, the whole thing also brought up a lot of the shit I buried. It's been on my mind almost constantly these past few days. I was struggling to figure out what the answers were. That was until this morning, when I met with Maxwell. He reminded me why I escaped from Ortega, of how it felt growing up there. I'm a completely different person now. I might have been following in what I thought were Glenn's footsteps, but in a way, I think it was a blessing in disguise that it turned out I wasn't. It just meant that the person I turned myself into was entirely original after all. An idealistic version of myself, the opposite of everything Ortegan society stands for. A person I could aspire to be. I won't pretend my mind was in a good place back then. I guess with everything I had going on, that persona became projected upon Glenn. It took on his appearance, and I fooled myself into thinking it was an accurate reflection of reality. It was never truly Glenn. I simply thought it was. And my confusion led me to learning a musical instrument, led me moving here to Woodcrest, and I don't regret either of those decisions. I also realize now that he was wrong. The reason I joined the Black Claws, it had nothing to do with him. Regardless of how I felt about Glenn, I still love the Black Claws as a band, still love the music and the message. I always felt like you guys deserved a better ending. I learned of the auditions only a few days after we first met. Do you remember? At the cafe? It was your first date, right? I was more than a little starstruck, I admit. Glenn had been a disappointment, but my expectations were not grounded in reality. The blame for that lies squarely on my shoulders. They say never meet your heroes, but Ty, you on the other hand did not disappoint one bit. You were exactly the person I'd hoped you'd be. And the same goes for you too, Lucas. So when I learned you guys were restarting the band a few days later and holding auditions for a bass player, it seemed like fate. The Black Claws minus Glenn in need of a bass player. I could play bass, and I even knew a bunch of your songs. Not because I was following Glenn's footsteps, but because this band means so much to me. Because the music quite literally shaped me as a person. And maybe, if the Black Claws continued making music, it'd help more people just like me. If so, I wanted nothing more than to be a part of that. I was so incredibly nervous at the audition, and I didn't rightly expect to get the gig. I'd have been happy so long as you guys were able to continue making music, even if that didn't involve me. But like I said, maybe it was fate? He is strange. The moment we started playing together, it just felt so right. And being a part of the Black Claws is a dream come true. I want to do everything in my power to help you succeed, to give you that second chance you deserve. I want you to know I've made up my mind. To hell with Glenn. He can release that stupid video to the whole damn world for all I care. I won't let him ruin this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I won't be intimidated. Jay, you are... Duh. No way I'd let you guys down. No way I'd let myself down. I'm here to stay no matter what. Jay. Wipe that fucking smile off your face, Lucas. Wipe that goddamn smile off your face. I'm finally comfortable with my sexuality, and I can express it, enjoy it, and celebrate it freely here. And damn it, if that ain't what I always dreamed of as a teen. So if people see a video of me sucking dick like it's going out of fashion, hell yeah, I say. I'm out here living my best life, and I won't let anybody shame me for that. That video merely serves to prove I'm staying true to my principles. That's a victory in my eyes. And after everything that's happened, after everything I've been through, I no longer resent Glenn for being somebody different from who I'd hoped. I was never in love with him. I was only in love with myself, or rather, the person I've become. But I do resent him for blackmailing me, and that's why I'm going to make sure we kick his ass in the upcoming battle and win the title for ourselves. Fuck Glenn. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that asshole doesn't get what he wants. Only then can I finally put all of this crap to rest once and for all. Only then will it truly be behind me for good. Ty, Lucas, you guys are my heroes. Ty used to be just like Glenn once, but you grew up, matured, turned into this wise, kind, and incredible man that stands in front of me now. And Lucas, you kept him out of trouble. You looked out for him and at his back. You're the backbone of this band, its beating heart, and Ty, you're its soul. Glenn was nothing more than the face, and you're both better looking anyway. I'm allowed to change my mind, okay? I won't let Glenn threaten you. I won't let Glenn threaten me. I pledge to give you guys everything I have. I'll give my all on the bass guitar, and my all on the backing vocals. I'll carry amplifiers. I will help write lyrics. I will help in any way I can. I'm not going to be your new Glenn. I'm going to be better. You have my word. You already are, my dear, and we are thrilled to have you as part of this band. Agreed. For what my opinion's worth, I like the Black Claws a lot more with you in it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having my back on this. And I'm sorry that I created such a fuss. If that video does get leaked, you guys will be okay with that, right? I hope it doesn't affect the band's reputation. Of course, my dear, and worry not. It is a small price to pay for such a talented bandmate and good friend. Besides, who has not sucked a dick or two in their time? Wow. Wow. Fair point. Yeah, touche, I suppose. Thanks again, guys. You guys think he'll follow through? Regrettably, I do. Glenn is hardly the type to make idle threats. Unfortunately. So, sorry if that video turns up on your phones. You can look on the bright side. Maybe it'll be educational.
Self-voicing enabled. Jay, so, sorry if that video turns up on your phones. Though look on the bright side, maybe it'll be educational. You can watch how a pro does it. Self-voicing disabled.
I can see to at least being a little curious about this thing you apparently do. You're actually planning to watch it? My apologies. I suppose that would be inappropriate. No, you have my blessing. I'm embracing this whole thing the best I can. So if you want to see, go right ahead. And besides, I'm still fully clothed. I've got that going for me. Only tick in that video is Glenn's, so I guess if you want to peek, that'll be your chance. Seen it. Yes, been there, done that. Eh? You can't spend over 15 years in a band with somebody and not see them naked at least once or twice, my dear. Right, I guess that makes sense. But Jay, this all happened the night before we met in the cafe with Diego. You never said anything. In fact, there were no signs anything was wrong at all. And when things went pear-shaped for me, you dropped everything to help. Well, what better distraction from your own problems than somebody else's? Truth be told, helping you with what you had going on made me feel a little bit better with my own situation. I'm sorry, Jay. Thank you for being there when I needed it, though. Don't be sorry. It's like I said, helping you kind of helped me in a strange way. So, thank you for that. And I guess I'm a little curious. What happened with Eric after all of that? Nothing much as of yet. There's something that certainly changed between us. That was the very first night I stayed until morning without us having slept together. I know that doesn't sound like anything, but this is Eric we're talking about, and me for that matter. And I'm pleased to confirm that we did, in fact, snuggle just like I had hoped. And that is progress, however small. Man, Eric is just full of surprises, it seems. Has he bombed for you yet? Ha! That is still a work in progress, sadly. But don't worry, he'll come around yet. Good luck. It sounds like you'll need it. Oh, and I don't know why I'm curious. I guess because all this is so unlike Eric, I never really thought about the person he might be underneath. I guess I just I guess I just took him at face value. Don't feel badly about it. Truth is, I did the same thing. That face value of his provided everything I was looking for, I guess. Well, except the bottom, of course. It wasn't until the other day that things, well, they changed. After that encounter, I felt like I needed a change of pace. The whole celebrating my sexuality thing, at least in that specific way, felt like it had reached its natural conclusion. And then, almost like it was fate, I saw a glimmer of somebody different behind Eric's horny exterior. I wanted to see more of that person. I wanted to get to know him. The last few days have been very different. He's still the same old self, if a little cagey. But I guess it's a whole new perspective of him, and I'm a whole lot more invested in our friendship because of it. I don't know what to expect, but he wears his ego like armor. It's usually so thick and impenetrable, almost like he's shielding himself from something. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just misreading it. But I can't knock this feeling with something he's dealing with that he hasn't told me about. Something major. I hope that one day he can trust me enough to open up about it, to let me in, to allow me to help in any way I can. But I won't force the matter. He doesn't have to tell me until he's ready. You're probably exactly what he needs. It's just, how do you convince him of that? It's not going to be easy, but good luck, Jay. Thank you, Lucas. Do you know something? I do, but Eric doesn't know how much I know, and he didn't tell me willingly. I only found out through my main competitor, his uncle, Cutter. Cutter? I'd heard this name before. I knew Cutter had been giving Lucas all kinds of grief, undercutting his quotes and stealing business with shoddy workmanship to keep his prices sharp. But I had never known that Cutter and Eric were related. Hold on, if Cutter's Eric's uncle, shouldn't he be working for him instead? That's exactly why he's working for me instead. The relationship is overwhelmingly hostile. That's why I trust him. Despite everything, I know whose side he's on. I see. So it's family related. That makes sense. He's never spoken a word about his family. In fact, now that I think about it, he's changed the topic any time it's come up. I spoke to Eric about that specific point. He was very reluctant. In the end, all he said was how much he hated his uncle, and that he wanted to do everything he could to make him suffer. Working for me, supporting a rival of his uncle's, that's just one way of doing it. Eric is a pain in the ass, but when it comes down to brass tacks, he works. Hard. Harder than you could ever imagine. Harder than Dom Hill, harder than me sometimes. He can be a liability, but sometimes he's also my best worker by a mile. It's a trade I'm willing to make. Sorry, it wouldn't be right for me to say anything more. Actually, keep this to yourself as well. All of this is clearly something Eric wants to keep private, but if you can earn his trust, I think it would do him a lot of good to talk about it with someone who cares. That's okay, I agree. He'd be fierce if I went behind his back like that anyway. I'm supposed to be earning his trust, not breaking it. He can tell me when he's ready. Until then, I'll keep buttering him up. Setting his cheeks all rosy is reward enough for me. Thank you, and again, good luck. Cutter was Eric's uncle, and Eric hated him. I was curious about the situation, but I knew it had nothing to do with me. I'd barely even worked for Lucas now on account of my relationship with Ty. There was nothing I could do except leave well enough alone. Anyway, thanks again for listening to me, you guys. I'm sorry it took so much time away from practice. I've never told anybody that whole story, so it means a lot to me that you all listened. And thanks for having me back, too. I promise I won't let you down. We stick together. Indeed, we are a team, through thick and thin. Yep, we're a team. So now that that's all out of the way, shall we make a start on our practice? The better we get, the harder we'll kick Glenn's ass. I don't know. Yes, of course, and with that in mind, I have something to give you both. And a copy for you as well, Aiden. I expect you will quite like it. Ty reached into his pocket and retrieved several small slips of paper, passing one to each of us. Having received my copy, I could see it contained a loose drum sequence, guitar, and brass tablature, and a full set of lyrics, the latter of which I found most familiar indeed. Indeed, it is our new song. I must confess to having misled you in some small way. I hope you will forgive me. I simply wanted to surprise you with this tonight. Alas, I still had not finished working on it, so this is why I was so delayed earlier today at the bar. I'm terribly sorry, my dear. I hope it is worth the wait. Don't apologize. You guys have to perform it for the first time in 2 days. If you told me this is what you were doing, I'd have been more than happy to give you time. And the fact that you wanted to surprise me, well, thanks, Ty. No, thank you, my love, for being so understanding. Please take a look at the last verse. I have written an all-new version. I glanced down to the final verse of the song. The previous version had a sad ending, and this was a very different version indeed. An autumn's day beneath twilight skies, the man I loved again appears. Forgives me for my foolish lies. Once more the eyes they fill with tears. We reunite our love so strong. Secrets laid bare our futures together. Never again would we stay so long. We both shall remain in love forever. Ty, do you like it? It's beautiful, Ty. No, it's perfect. My dear, it could not have been anything but, for you see, it was inspired by somebody equally perfect. Tears began welling up in my eyes. We both shall remain in love forever. Tal was right. This time it was forever. Unable to restrain myself, I leaned forward, planning a lovingly kiss directly on Ty's lips. Judging by the look of surprise on his face, I'd caught him entirely off guard. Oh my. Aw, that was adorable. God damn it, Lucas. God damn it, Lucas. Damn it, Lucas. What do we keep saying, Lucas? What do we keep saying? What do we keep saying, Lucas? What do we keep saying? You're gonna die, Lucas. You're gonna die, Lucas. I launched in, giving Ty another loving kiss, right on the lips. I didn't care that Jay and Lucas were watching, not one bit. I love you so much, Ty. And I love you, Aiden. Ty wrapped his arms around the back of my neck, pulling me into another kiss. Followed by another, and another, and another. Aw, they make such a sweet couple, don't they? Yup. Uh-oh. Oh wow, that's a lot of tongue. Should we say something? The moment clothing comes off, you grab Aiden, and I'll grab Ty. Got it. Thankfully, it wouldn't come to that, as we managed to rein ourselves in before things got too heated. We instead opted to save that for later in the evening, for when we had some privacy. After all, there were so many ways of showing love that you simply couldn't express in company. What followed was a highly successful band practice, even with a loose first run through the new song. It sounded incredible, and I couldn't help but tear up once more having heard it performed with the full ensemble. We already had an exciting and eventful day thus far, but something told me this day still had a surprise or two left in store. And I had no idea how right I was. Okay, hang on, let me... Yeah, I just, checked ahead. Okay, we're gonna leave off here tonight. I was just checking ahead, seeing if I had to, censor it ahead of time, and I do. Yeah, I gotta, keep it censored. Ty's route is going to be the death of me. I swear to God, it is. Ugh, yum yum water. Jay is just built different. He's just built different. I can't think of anything else to say. So, stay safe, have a good night, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.